barbershop when all the children aren't in the shop.
Yes.
But so Luke Cage in print has been everything from Jessica Jones's husband,
right,
to
Baby Day,
leading the Avengers, partner to Iron Fist.
Right.
But this Luke Cage is something that is really different. This is really the follow up to Jessica Jones. So it is a very different version. And from there, I kind of wanted to push it to you guys in terms of who Cage was on this show as we started episode 1.
Well, I think for me, from the very first episode, what made Luke Cage what he was is the fact that when you look at his character, you can see that there was a lot going on, that was torturing him, but, they parsed it out as to what was going on because, there were so many things happening where any other person would have lashed out. When things happened to him, especially the one scene, I think it was in season 3 when he was, episode 3 when he was standing outside the Christmas Attic Center and a kid came up behind him with the gun. Any other character, even with his power set, any other character would have just lashed out at the kid with the gun. Mm-hmm. But you could tell, like, at least early on, it's like he knows he knows he has all this power, all this rage that's just pent up, but he was doing the best he can to contain it. It's almost tantamount as to what you would get with Bruce Banner being an intelligent Hulk. Like, okay, I know I could do these things, but just because I could do these things, shit out.
Okay.
That's interesting. No, I'll let Kayode.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that it's more of Luke wanting to just sort of be in peace and not have to deal with certain things that are going on in Harlem in terms of characters like Cottonmouth and his gang of nefarious characters. But it is just interesting to sort of see, and especially that episode 3 where it's him trying to lecture this young man who has a gun to his head and telling him about where they're standing and who the building is named after that they're in front of. And the idea that after, everything this person did for black people, to be here in present day and have someone try and call me a nigger. However you want to decide to say it. And that was a really powerful scene, especially just thinking in terms of everything that's going on in, the current, in the real world right now. And that's one of the things that was a very strong point that carried out throughout the whole series, is the idea that here is a black man who is bulletproof, walking around in a hoodie. There's clearly a message that they're sending that is without subtlety and just completely in your face. And that's one of the strongest things about this show. And yeah, there are times when they do get a little bit preachy, but at the same time, you look at popular culture and you see the limited opportunities you have to use your voice if you're a person of color as a show creator or a staff writer or as a director. So Marvel taking this opportunity to say, you do what you want to do, Mr. Coker. You do what you want to do, Mr. Coulter. You do what you want to do, Mahershala Ali and Alfred Woodard and Simone Missick, especially Simone Missick. To have that opportunity, you do kind of have to go all or nothing with it. So I don't fault them for that at all.
I would, but I want to hear back what Megan has to say first.
Well, my interpretation of the show overall was a lot of people were definitely kind of treated like fish out of water. And not, in the sense that not knowing your place and trying to run away from who you are. We saw that permeate the entire show.
Yeah.
We saw it definitely with Mariah. We definitely saw it with Cottonmouth. We saw it with Luke. We saw it with Claire. We saw it with Misty. Everybody was running away from who they were, and they had pivotal points throughout the show where they came to the realization that I've come to a crossroads. Who am I going to be? What decisions am I going to make? How is this going to affect the rest of my life? So I really thought that was really important to me to see that. And something else that I really liked about the show was that we don't see a one-dimensional type of black person.
Oh,
we see a variety of hairstyles in the women, which spoke tremendously to me. We get to just see different black women. I don't think it's been such a long time for me to see a TV show that had that amount of black women in it. It comes very few and far between. One of my favorite TV shows. I wouldn't even go there with that one.
And honestly,
but I mean a variety of different types of looks. A variety of different types of.
Can I add one?
No, but there is.
But
you do see it. I'm not saying that you don't see it. I'm just saying it's very few and far between. Like one of my favorite TV shows to this day, I would put it up against any sitcom is Living Single.
Oh yeah.
And the variety, it was the variety of black women that you saw in that show, like just the main characters. But I'm digressing. Just seeing that there's not a one-dimensional type of black person. There are not so great black people. There are black people who are flawed. There are black people who are trying to rise up out of the crap that they're dealing with in the day-to-day lives. Some people wallow in it. I just love to see the characterization and how people didn't stay stagnant. They grew in certain ways. They either faltered or they rose above. And I liked those type of undercurrents in stories.
Actually, if I can at this moment, if you don't mind me cutting.
Why? Because I was getting ready to talk twice and you cut me off twice?
Yeah.
Oh. What?
I was going to actually ask if someone in the audience, if they wanted to, just give us their opinion of the show. We have this gentleman right here.
With the black glove, yes.
Speak loud so everybody can hear you. Mike can pick you up, man.
All right, I really liked it because, especially, for two reasons. One, because Luke Cage himself came out really, I want to say, stereotypical. He didn't really have a whole lot of blackisms, I guess you could say. That really, he didn't really have like a whole lot of stuff about him that came off as like, oh, he's just that black guy. He's like my black friend. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There was that one shot out with Method Man that was like, oh, dude, okay, cool, that was cool. But like, I don't know, he came off as just another person. And then two, the way they wrote the community was awesome. They nailed it. Like the whole barbershop kind of thing, and Pops, because everybody knows a Pops, and the whole, they nailed the scene in the church. I'll say it that way. The scene in the church, and a lot of characters came out as more complex than your average TV black people.
Yes. Yes, I
that was awesome.
Definitely appreciated
that.
And I'm glad that you brought up the characterization of Harlem, because I liked that part of it too. Just how it wasn't just a place, it was as much of a character as anybody else was, and how it really motivated a lot of the characters. And Harlem meant something different to everybody, but at the same time, it was a unifier for everybody. I mean, everybody saw something different. Some people saw it as something to be conquered. Some people saw it as something to be cherished. Some people just saw it as just a place. But, like, I know a lot of people who are from Harlem, probably one watching now. And the way in which you talk to anybody from Harlem, the way in which they speak about it is just crazy. It's unparalleled. They love their section of the city. And then also going into how important it is that we have a show with so many different types of black people, given the importance of Harlem in the early 20th century. It was a cultural mecca for black people. And just to have such black excellence, and we talk about that all the time now, but this isn't just some new thing that came up in the 2000s. Like, we've had so many different periods of black excellence. Did we realize it sometimes? Sometimes it's hard for us to see it later on. We learn about the Harlem Renaissance and all that great stuff. And people see it as the past, but it's like it really speaks to today too.
Well, I guess my thing about what makes Harlem special, though, when you talk about it, Harlem continues to be a special place for African Americans through a long stretch of time.
Yes.
Because after the Harlem Renaissance, you have the Sugar Ray Robinson time period. Even as things start to decline, and you have the Nicky Barnes, there is something culturally that is unique about Harlem. There was a documentary on Netflix. I can't remember, it's one of the ones that Nas produced, but they were talking about how clothing in hip hop had changed over the years, and they talked about how people who were from Harlem dressed different from everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
I have cousins from Queens, and I have cousins from Harlem, and you can look at them and
tell where they're from.
And speaking of which, that was an interesting thing where they actually had Dapper Dan
Yes. Which
in episode 3, and that was like one of many great cameos that they had. And again, it just goes back to how much of the culture is represented, not just of black people, but of Harlem specifically. That I really appreciated about the show.
Now,
And its authenticity too.
No, and speaking of authenticity, I want to put you guys back to something before we get to the characters. That you talked about the characterization of Harlem as a place and the individual characters. How much is that is driven by the fact that the politics of Black America was present? And what I mean by that in terms of issues of gentrification, issues of policing, issues of economic empowerment, because they talk a lot about, these kids all want an opportunity, but nobody's going to hire them. The black fatherhood, which I actually had a problem with the line that they had in there, which is the fact nobody's got a father, and everybody's got a gun. Because statistically, it's actually not true.
Yeah.
The most recent sociological reports that came out in 2014 and 2013 say that 70% of all African American men are involved with their children at one level or another. So I say that to say, how much of this show really works, because this is the first time you've seen a television show to embrace the politics that matter to the community, and then have characters responding to those things as motivations. Because talk about the villains.
Yeah.
The villains and the heroes, their collective motivations aren't. They have different. It's kind of like
too far from each other.
It's like Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk on Daredevil.
Yeah.
Everybody's end goal is the same. Their approaches to get there are dramatically different. So,
Right.
What was Alfred Woodard's character on that? I cannot remember her name.
Mariah Dillard.
I found one of the funniest things, but most bothersome things about her character in
I was gonna go into that.
Was then this is where I also started taking the swerve towards blaxploitation as well, because you always had people fighting against the man, but everybody's plotting with each other against each other. But it's in like every other scene, she's sitting up there talking to Cottonmouth, and it almost always wraps up with, "We can't be seen together." But it's like the moment you say you can't be seen together, 20 minutes later, in the next scene that you're in, you're with him. But the craziest part is, early on, how she's saying that, look, you got your thing that you're doing, but I'm going to allow you to do X, Y, and Z, but we're going to do something with that money. We're going to do something good with that money. And, it just made me wonder a lot, like, where are your motivations lying when you're allowing your own blood relative to run roughshod in the same place that you're trying to develop, at a rec center that you're trying to develop, but you're going to do something good with it. Is it one of those things where you're looking at, okay, in order to do something good, we're going to have to break a few eggs? Or you're just blind to the fact that, hey, you're letting this person do what they want to do, and you're just still trying to turn a blind eye. But it's kind of hard to turn that blind eye when some of this stuff is happening right in front of you. I'm sorry, you get a rocket launcher in a restaurant, and you think no one's going to notice?
Yeah.
That was a crazy scene for me,
extreme.
because honestly, the show, especially early on, really tries to straddle the line between being a serious drama and an outright, comic book. And for the most part, it handles it effortlessly, but there are certain points, especially when the music comes into play, and we'll talk about that, but that scene where there's a really great moment between Luke Cage and his landlady, and they're just talking and everything, and then it cuts to Cottonmouth on a rooftop. I'm like, you don't have one of your goons, one of your dudes to do that? You're actually going out there yourself, getting on a rooftop. You done took off your suit jacket. You still got the vest on.
You gotta be comfortable, man.
And he's just looking up there, and all of a sudden, Bazooka comes out, and he's blowing up half a building.
But guess what? That really didn't even bother me, because
it didn't bother me either. But I'm just saying, I'm making more of an observation of like.
Oh, nobody saw. Yeah, how did you get that up there? And nobody saw it.
Yeah, there are certain points in the show.
But exactly, I was gonna say, What are you really gonna say?
Wilson Fisk smashed a man's head in with a
In
door
front-
in
and
broad
that was-
daylight.
and that was-
tax
reduction.
Okay, at least that was
And no one gave it.
that was a Call of Duty. You kind of can't see me on the rooftop. This
Right.
bad.
And it was night, so
Right.
I mean, who knows? And then he probably owns that building. You never know.
Ah.
I'm serious. He probably.
No, he didn't, because the landlady's husband said that. No, like my grandfather owned this.
No, not the
No,
building
no,
that
no.
he was in.
That's
The
the
thing
building
that he was on top of.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah.
he could have owned that building.
Oh, okay,
And
fair
somebody, so you know.
Well, seeing how you guys got there, we might as well talk about the characters now. Seeing how we're deep in the characters.
Seamless.
So
And
I will save Mike Coulter for later on because I think
Yeah, that's
because I will say, just to preface it as, I think the most interesting thing about Luke Cage was the fact that everybody was probably more interesting than Luke Cage.
Yeah.
So let me just start with a place that I think everybody was naturally picked,
Okay.
and that would be Misty Knight.
Oh,
And
me.
because-
You're talking about
oh,
me.
yes, I'm talking about
Oh.
you. But for two reasons. One, because Simone Missick, who plays Misty Knight, is a Howard alum.
Yes.
yeah.
DC.
Two, they could have taken everybody else out the show and made it a police procedural, and I would have watched it with her in it.
I would watch it.
I mean,
I
yeah.
would have watched the crap out of that and been okay.
You know, one thing I really liked about not so much Misty Knight's character, but how Luke Cage described her, which actually cemented the casting. Because, for casting like that, they could have went with any other younger woman, and it might not have been believable. But the very first scene where they're together at the bar, and he tells her outright, "Well, you're not the kind of woman that Cottonmouth normally goes after." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he more or less calls her old. And I had to think about that for a second, but I was like, but you know what? It works because, and not to, call anybody about, about the age, but see, I think the problem is with a lot of these shows is at some point, when you do put someone in there that's younger, they don't have the smarts. And, she comes off as someone that, just because I'm old, don't sleep. Because I know some things, I know some people that can kill some people. And it was just even that much better when Luke finally figured out that, Misty Knight was a cop. And he's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the other thing in relation to like her being an older woman was one of my favorite moments early in episode 2.
Yeah.
And that's just another point of how black this show is, that they weren't even halfway through episode 2 and they had to introduce someone named Chauncey.
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, wow, this show is really black.
Oh, I have a
It was so great to have that moment of her on the court, and she's like, "No, I'll play, for information."
Yeah.
And she has to pull him aside and point out her initials on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's me, sure.
that's me, boo boo.
Don't sleep.
It's going to be okay.
Don't sleep.
So no, I definitely agree with you on that point, and in general, because that's the thing you see in this show is a lot of with female characters who are, older but still put in a position of, this is an attractive woman. This is a professional woman. There are a lot of women in the police department in positions of power. You got Sonia Son in there who shows up from The Wire, and
There's a lot of Wire.
There are
a lot of people from The Wire in this show. A lot.
Yeah.
Actually, the fun thing was my mom-in-law came over on Sunday as we were watching it, and she was surprised that Faison was still kicking. She's like, he's still around? Like, yeah.
I love that Frankie Faison basically just shaved his beard,
Right.
and
Did the
it's
same
basically the same character from Banshee, which just ended.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's basically just sugar.
Oh wow.
Pretty much.
But I still love that character and his cool mantra of,
Always forward.
forward always.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this great thing that really, another thing that carries on throughout the show, because that's what Luke has to do. And unfortunately, it's difficult, and there's, a lot of stuff for other people that, may not have seen past, 4 or 5 episodes. But it's definitely something true that is necessary for the show.
Let me throw this out there because we actually got a comment from one of our viewers
Okay.
saying, seriously, I keep saying it's The Wire meets Empire mixed with Shaft and set in the MCU. So do we agree or disagree with that? Or
No.
Well, I wouldn't say Shaft.
I would take The Wire out. I mean, I would take Empire out.
I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
there's not
I think
nearly enough.
I think because of the musical element to that.
Well, no,
That's
you
why.
need to go further
said
back and look at
New York
New
Undercover.
I knew you were going
Right.
to say that.
You
Yeah.
have to.
Yes.
You cannot watch this show. And just to preface this for anyone who might be under 30. Yeah, I'm old. But yeah, if you don't watch this show and not think about New York Undercover and think back to how important that show was, especially another show where the music itself was a character, because that was one of the things that really had common with New York Undercover, where they're bridging the gap
their musical guests
through the music,
And
through
that's how
the
we
intro
discovered
music.
a lot of
It was
them.
like
Yeah.
they're all like every episode of New York Undercover had like no dialogue, but there was always that hip hop song that was playing. And then you would go fast forward to the end of the episode, and there'd always be a musical guest, and usually it would be someone who was
Hot
from the
at
old
that-
school.
Right.
Either that or they were hot in that moment.
They
or
were hot
not
in that
super,
moment.
but they weren't always super hot.
hot,
Like
but-
put on, it was just enough. They're bubbling at the surface.
Oh yeah, but you had heard them out there. So,
Right.
but again, I feel like you can't have a show about
black people.
African Americans and you don't have a barbershop, a church, music.
I have a list
And
of the many black things that we saw in this show.
Yeah, there's
Run it down,
there's
run it
14
down.
things, isn't it?
No.
15 things?
One of my I'm just going to bring up one thing. One of my favorite things was using 30 pairs of Jordan 5s to bait turtle. That was the blackest thing. And I was here for it. I'm here for it because I have so many friends that are sneakerheads, and I was thinking about it. I was like, that'd probably be the way to lure them.
And you know what it was though? Was chess. Because
Chess too?
the one thing that for me that was slept on, it was like I feel like every older man, every young African American man encounters somebody over the course of their lifetime who was like, you need to learn how to play chess. Because to survive in America, chess is a quintessential way of understanding the fact that you are under
Calculated
siege,
moves.
You make calculated moves, no moves are wasted, and you must not only be able to,
You can't
just be aggressive, you have to be able to adapt.
I was gonna say you have to
Yes.
play the short game and
the
long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me, that was the show worked for me, even when I didn't think the plot or particularly people's costumes are very late in the series.
Oh man.
Lime green. Ladies and gentlemen, lime green was a color that was popular in the African American community in the late 90s.
Yeah.
It's back. It's sort of back.
No, it needs to die. Lime green.
It needs to die, but we can go back as far as the 70s too.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that was.
I've seen some things.
That was like cool. Though. 70s was cool. 90s was like Ocean Pacific, light, right there.
Okay.
Oh man.
But no, I absolutely agree with you guys on everything you said. I guess the question that I'm gonna raise for you guys is this. Now, this is the respectability politics issue that I'm gonna throw out there.
Yes.
Because it's there.
Yes.
And the reason why is, let's go back to what Luke Cage is like on this show as opposed to elsewhere. Luke Cage elsewhere is somebody who grew up in Harlem. He's a child of the community. For the Netflix TV show, Misty Knight is an actual link to the Harlem community. She's from there. Luke is from down south.
Also to add to that, there's no criminal element. Like he was, because that's a pivotal part of his storyline.
He's a sheriff. He's an ex-sheriff and he's an ex-marine.
Yes.
That
was not in the original character.
But
he was definitely a criminal through and through.
Right. Well, a criminal through and through who quit.
He quit. He turned the tide, but for the longest time he was a criminal.
So there's that, and for me it's the selection of what historical African Americans they chose to mention and which ones they didn't. And I'll say this: in Harlem, the fact that you're going to tell me Crispus Attucks and Jackie Robinson are the two names that get mentioned, but somehow
Langston Hughes,
Marcus Garvey, Langston Hughes, or anybody I will say that is not quote unquote part of the lexicon of acceptable African American heroes in the history of the United States. There was a 33-second cameo, if you missed it, of that sign when somebody's walking past and it's all power to the people. Beyond that, I thought it was because there is no such thing as Black America. There are many Black Americans of many different Black people of many different political persuasions. If you don't believe me, Ben Carson. Having said that, Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I began to, at a certain point in time, I began to wonder how much they tried to change things. To be fair, to try to express the fact there is no monolithic Black America. And the reason why I say it is because if you watched New York Undercover back in the day, there was a pre-packaged, pre-boxed version of Black America. Whether you agree with it or not. I think if you watch Empire, I think if you watch some of the Tyler Perry stuff on OWN, there are versions of Black America that, depending upon your viewpoint, are or are not flattering or reflective of the actual reality. I feel like to try to create a big box to fit in as many different types of Black America as they were, they made some concessions. Concessions that I didn't personally agree with, but that I accepted as part of how you had to try to package this to get people to sign on. So, having put that out there, what do you guys think?
You know what? Can I throw this into the audience as well? If anybody?
Yes. Please.
So
Anybody have any?
I know it's me again.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Encourage others to talk.
I kind of have to go in a different direction on that one.
Okay.
Because on two fronts, I feel like they kind of dropped the ball. One, the first front being, you know how you can watch any show about, like, Italian gangsters or the Italian mob, and it's like, oh, they're heroes, they're giving back to their community, and they're, like, romanticized and whatnot. But they just made Cottonmouth look like a jerk. And then, you know, Black Mariah also comes off as like, oh, nah, she's totally wrong for everything that she's saying. And I'm like, wait, but that's how a lot of people reach economic parity in America. So how can you actually be mad at them? And then, furthermore, the other side of it was, I don't know. There was while it is representative to a point, the litany of blue-collar jobs and blue-collar folk, which, I mean, yo, it's Harlem, like, come on. But at the same time, okay, I'm looking at this from a weird kind of, maybe not weird, but like a perspective that I have not run across in a lot of people that I've met. And I've met a lot of people. The whole, like,
Modest much.
Not to
You know,
toot your own horn.
like, my mom's an accountant, she's the most boring person on the face of the planet. My dad's literally a rocket scientist. There weren't too many of those, like, in-between folks.
Yes.
And that kind of rubbed me like, really?
Let me throw this back at you. To the degree that they were on the show, how many of them had any moral compass? Or did they exist in the show only for the purposes of motivating the villains? Which, as the accountant that you saw, when things got jammed up, and the really super shady lawyer, which I'll just say I believe all lawyers are shady. I'm a lawyer, and I can tell you we all sold our soul upon graduation.
What about the funeral? What about the funeral director?
Oh, the funeral.
Man, funeral director.
He was on payroll.
Man, listen.
No, I totally agree with you, because that kind of blew me. Because it's just like Andre from Empire. It's like that he went to Ivy League schools and all this, but like at the end of the day, well, I'm not going to spoil the last episode of Empire, but at the end of the day, he works for the devil. Like, you're like, come on, really?
But, I mean, that all goes back to what I was saying earlier about escaping your destiny. Like, these are people who have not left Harlem, for the most part. I mean, you don't get any indication that too many people have left Harlem. They might have gone to school. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I'm only speculating. A lot of these people have ties to their community. And, like with Black Mariah, when you see these flashbacks, she was trying to escape everything that she knew of her. She's trying to escape the shadow of her grandmother. She's trying to escape the shadow of Harlem, in a sense. By still she's still embrace it, obviously.
Right.
But how much was she really embracing it? How much that was the truth and how much was a facade? And I had a lot of problems with her character. Because I felt like a lot of things, it didn't feel like it was her. It felt like she was being pushed a lot of ways. And I mean, some of it was her stepping up to the plate, but I felt like she was being pushed. And given Alfred Woodard, that's just not her. That doesn't play to her strength.
But that leads into one of my favorite characters on the show, Shades.
Shades. Oh, who doesn't like Shades?
Man, listen.
I don't like Shades.
No. Because this was the thing with Shades, and I remember, Theo Rossi from Sons of Anarchy, he was an infinitely different character on that show, drastically insecure compared to who Shades is. Because Shades is low-key the devil. He's that dude just laying back in the cut, waiting to see how everything's playing out. And it's great because with all of these powerful actors in here doing so much and, just giving their all to their performances, it was great to see Theo Rossi acting his ass off acting his butt off just by being quiet and just giving just like the right look.
Yeah.
Or, smiling a certain way, especially by the time it's really amazing how they developed that character in very subtle ways. Like, when he was in the barbershop and just, Cottonmouth is getting his, shave, and he just goes over to an empty chair and just sits down like he's, in a love seat in his living room and starts chatting up Luke and everyone else and talking about, I knew this kid back in the day, what was his name, Rico or Chico, yeah. And he's so just smooth with it. And he's a character that just is in everyone's ear to an extent. Some people don't really go all the way with it.
Right.
Others just jump off the cliff with them. And I feel like that's one of those things that is another great strength of the show, is just his character in particular.
And while we're talking about characters, I do want to point out something. I took notes.
Yeah.
Something that I find kind of problematic with the Marvel Universe. In all of these shows that we've seen, you can't be an older black man in these shows.
Oh, nobody makes it?
Ben did not make it in Daredevil. Ben did not make it in Daredevil. Detective Oscar Clemens did not make it in Jessica Jones, and Pops did not make it in Luke Cage. So right, and he didn't make it. He didn't make it past what episode was that? Like two, right?
Okay, but say this though.
Wait a minute.
Wait. How? And I'm still trying to turn my head over Ben Urich. That's like Ben Urich has been around for like
he's supposed to be a mainstay,
right? He's like, it's like J. Jonah, then Robbie Robinson, and then Ben. Like, how do you kill Ben?
Exactly, and it just.
I never understood that.
It almost feels like it almost gets to that point of what women say about getting refrigerated. It feels like it's teetering that line where it's like, well, we gotta kill the black man just to get the story motivated. Like, those are turning points. Like, that's when we because with Jessica Jones, that's when he kills him. That's when we finally see what's his name?
Kilgrave?
No. That's not who killed him. The dude, Nuke, right?
Yeah.
That's when we finally see, to the extent of his crazy, he kills him.
Yeah.
With the whole Pops die. Look.
Okay,
Look.
Can I ask you something?
Look.
But didn't you know that? Look, everybody saw the trailer, and I mean the Run the Jewels trailer, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You either the boy in the chair or Pops was going to die.
Yeah, you kind
of. I'm not saying you don't know that. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, I'm just saying that
it's becoming a
pattern.
No, I understand
a trend.
Okay, so let me say this. I don't have a problem with certain characters getting killed. My problem is when you kill the wrong person on the show. Killing Ben Urich robbed Daredevil of a character that had a lot of emotional gravitas and was kind of like, of all the characters next to Foggy, was the most decent character on the show.
Yeah.
My problem with Luke Cage, everybody said they got to a certain point in the season. I'm not going to mention who got killed. The most magnetic, energetic character on the show gets killed, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I would have wiped out the whole cast with a nuclear explosion and have kept him. I could have had him and let me finish.
Okay.
Him and Misty Knight.
Okay.
I could have done 4 seasons of the two of them going at each other because that was what was compelling. It was like, look, my thing behind that particular character, whose name I will not mention, is look. If you have a character who they basically look Luke Cage as like the Black Captain America, he's you know 4 corners square, upstanding. His adversary has got to be somebody that does things to him emotionally, that puts him in a place that he can't understand. And that's, if you're the straight man, you got to have your Joker.
But we got that twice in this show. Because what we had, the man of the hour that took my breath away in this show, has been Mother Hunt your diamond back. I love him. I love him. And I saw
What's that?
He's like if Samuel Jackson, Wesley Snipes, specifically Simon Phoenix, is that somebody pointed that out?
Wow.
It's like Simon Phoenix, Samuel L. Jackson,
and
Tony
Todd
as some type of crazy love baby.
So my ear's bleeding.
It should because I'm excited.
No, I need Diamondback's coat though.
I need Diamondback in every scene. He was just so dynamic.
This is one of the things where we talked about where it was like, okay, there's like a serious point to the show where it's played it super straight, but then they just go comic book crazy with it, and a lot of that does come from Diamond.
Well, hold on one second. Let me come over to
the audience.
One, to speak on the issue of Shades, there's a problem I have with Shades. I know he plays the big bad in a sense, but when you think about when Cottonmouth's boy shoots up Switzerland, like Tone shoots up Switzerland, and it's like you should have like stopped him.
Because at a certain point you realize you can't stop certain people.
No, but
and you have to let them play themselves.
But see, with that though, like you grew up with Pop, you know Pop. When they show the flashback, Pop knows Cottonmouth and Shades. They raised them up together.
That was Chico's father.
That wasn't Shades. That was not Shades.
Oh, well, cool.
Right.
Shades can be as cold-blooded as possible.
Yeah.
Right. That was
now there is an issue though of misogynoir and definite misogyny going on there, and the respectability politics that Luke Cage plays into. But I do appreciate the villains being as villainous as possible. I love Cottonmouth.
Yes.
And honestly, I would love to see him all over the place.
Yeah.
I've loved Ali since the 4400.
When he was going by
the 4400.
Basically,
and if you haven't watched the show, you need to go.
Hold on.
Which was basically what Hero should have been.
Right, I was going to say really quick, for those who don't know what the 4400 was.
It's what Hero should have been.
Right, that was a show that lasted, what, 3 seasons?
Four seasons. That 4th season was kind of...
It's like 20 episodes a season.
Yeah, it was
that's 4th season.
That was my first exposure to him as well.
I remember him from that. I remember him from Predators. He was like the African Death Squad soldier in that. He was also in House of Cards.
Yeah, he was in House of Cards.
And that was the thing, certain scenes, especially when he was on the bench with Mariah in one scene, that was just totally 100% Remy Danton.
I think there's a big thing though with Cage, and it should be pounded into, because with most of us, and we know this personally as Blackness, there's never time off. There's never a break from being scrutinized, and it will be scrutinized really heavily. And so when you look at this, there's a bunch of dynamics there, a bunch of dynamics at play that need to be pointed out. But in a sense, we know Blackness is not a monolith, but it's going to have to be picked apart, and that's what I like a lot. That's what makes me love it, is that these are things that we see, like the barbershop talk. There are people that who are straight up misogynists, but you still love them.
Now you definitely tell, because I wanted to ask him before, and y'all came with hold on, and y'all came like the Double X posse back in the day, just ran me right over. So you mentioned misogyny twice. I wonder, what misogyny did you see in Luke Cage?
Well, straight up from the get-go when he meets Misty.
Okay.
He meets Misty, and he rags on her for being old, and then he's like, "But yeah, man."
As a woman, that scene made me feel so uncomfortable too. I'm glad you pointed that out. It's is it just me, or is this scene and she's flattered by it. I'm like, this is.
It's negative.
I don't think it was so much that she was flattered by it. I think.
Well, she recounts it later as being flattered.
She did happen to sag with him.
I mean, they eventually do get off.
But she mentioned what about him she was attracted to.
Yeah. But so there's those things that pop up, and there's the part that pops up later on. But you said earlier, everyone hasn't seen, but there are parts that pop up every now and then. And again, to me, and I guess since as a man, I can somewhat overlook certain things, but I know this thing, so I can't really just
of course,
allow it to be. But I still love it. I still love the characters. I still think they're dynamic. Diamondback, love that crazy.
Can I give you an alternate perspective on that real quick? Because I don't disagree with you, but this was the thing about that moment that kind of rang true for me later on. When Misty is kind of when you're not just when she's reflecting, but when she's having a full-fledged conversation about that and many other things later on. The thing for me that really rang true about it was the fact that most times when I see a female character have a sexual relationship with the hero, somehow her decision making is debilitated, and she's now incapable of performing her function. And the thing that I thought was really interesting was the fact that she never stopped being her. The fact that that moment had happened between those two characters did not. It was more of an aggravation. As I can't believe that, but I'm going to be true to who I am under all circumstances, and this fact means nothing.
Yes.
And in that, the reason why I liked that character so much, and I know this is going to be high praise, that was the first 21st century black woman I have ever seen on television, because that character was more reflective of the women who raised me, the women I've gone to school with, that I've interacted with, than any other black woman that I can think of that I've seen on television. From her playing basketball, it was she wasn't just sassy or just smart, but I know sassy is a horrible thing, because I know that's like the world's greatest trope. But she was all things. She was a full-fledged, multi-dimensional human being that was capable of more than one emotion, more than one thought, was capable of being vulnerable, capable of being hurt, and she was still going to come back and be true to who she was, not for anyone else's sake, but for herself. That for me, I was like, oh, and that was for me was what, for all of the show's failings, and there were a lot, and problems, that character and how that character was written and the space they gave Simone Missick to be able to act it out made that show something that was special, which is like, I couldn't imagine casting anybody else in that role, because that's got to be, next to a handful of other projects, a role where a character who was not projected to be that important, she is the linchpin character for that show. If that role doesn't work, that show shatters.
You know, the only person I could have saw, I'm sorry, the only person that I could have saw in that role is Nicole Beharie. That's the only person that I could have seen in that role.
Right, but actually what made it for me with Misty Knight was the fact that early on, you know, after her and Luke had coffee, by the way, you know, the whole coffee thing is killing me right now. Like, you want to go out for some coffee? He never came to me because I wanted to take him out for some coffee. You want to get some coffee? I don't drink coffee. Like, okay, that's right up there now with Netflix. Bless you. But
I'll leave it to a Netflix show to find something to replace Netflix and chill.
Of course.
Where else?
The whole purpose.
Yeah. But what made it for me with that character is after the first time that they hooked up, and what really solidified her as a woman is when Luke finds out who she really is. You know, again, they really could have just played her character as being like the jilted woman.
Yes.
But she was like, nah, it was just a thing. And Luke was actually more hurt. He played the more hurt part.
I love that.
He's
like, what? Really?
Well, that was also more believable than anything else I had seen.
I mean, because
the guys
honestly, if you as a man were to have a one-night stand with a woman and she's telling you, oh, I'm an auditor or some other, benign profession, and then you find out she's a police detective, you're going to get your feelings a bit. Either you're going to be like sort of insecure in your masculinity, or you're just going to feel betrayed that this woman just straight up lied to me after we were having coffee. Like what?
Lots of coffee.
It's you gave me a club name.
Yeah.
You said your name was Jennifer.
But I definitely like that they did a switch up on another cliche that you usually find in television and films, where every now and then it should be the man who feels betrayed or used, because that does naturally happen. There's a very clear message being sent of, just like men wanting to get with women just for sex, women want to do the same thing, and you have to kind of acknowledge that.
Really, was all that necessary?
Yes, we do like sex. And this goes back to that post I had.
And then, I like that they try to not put so much shame or judgment on the decision making of either of these two adults, honestly.
Well,
but
and something
he hit it right on the head. Two Adults.
to consenting adults.
Boom.
And then something I would like to also bring up is,
Although her partner did give her shit.
But we gonna talk.
that's your partner. Your partner's
Ooh.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Fair job.
Damn.
Put it up. Toss some dollars.
Sorry, Pop.
You actually have two. You scored twice. Thank you.
Maybe put the third one up. You know you're gonna do it again.
Basically.
Where's my 5 at?
Right.
Oh, you want to
No,
just
no,
make
no,
it up?
no.
But one of the things that I think we haven't touched on is the dialogue between black women. That has been some of the most greatest pieces of this show too.
Mm-hmm.
The way that Misty Knight, how she interacted with Claire, that was really important. How they fought together, how they were struggling with each other, and I like that when they were fighting, it wasn't a mini mention of "you're now with Luke." I'm glad that did not come up. So it was really important to me to see how Misty had a mentor, her former supervisor, how she reacted to her, how Mariah and the reporter interacted, how Misty and homegirl that had an interesting storyline. Yeah, Candace. How she reacted to her. I liked the dialogue between the women because so often we're often portrayed as just completely adversarial or completely loving, and that's not how we react to each other. We're fully human. Like, I really like how black women were portrayed. We're flawed. We get angry. We get mad. We get jilted.
We get scared.
We get horny. We see all these different emotions, and it's not treated as like, oh, you poor child, or oh, what a strong woman you are. It's like, no, what a strong person that you are.
What about the mention of the sororities?
Oh, yes, I caught that.
I caught that.
That was hilarious.
She said it twice.
You let her
she's like,
skew
excuse
at
me.
it.
She was like, no. It is this.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say because I am not Greek at all, so
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
They made a reference to, hey, look, having gone to Hampton.
That is real.
As soon as you heard Ski Wee, I was like, oh, AKA.
You know who that
I was
means.
like, AKA.
Exactly.
And when they made the other sound,
She
I
said, no.
I was like, oh, she's really a Delta.
Right.
That's how black this show is.
But again, it's the conversations that only happen.
That are authentic between black people.
Exactly.
And it's important that that showrunner was black. It's important. It's important because you're going to get those nuances and how important those things are. I'm not saying that people of other races can't understand that, but it's us telling our stories. Exactly. And that's very important to get those nuances right, to get those conversations. I was talking with a friend of mine. He's from New York, and he was talking about how in the first episode, how real that small conversation about the Knicks was. How people from New York romanticize, that was the exact word he used, romanticize the 90s Knicks. And how that resonated for him off the bat. And that had him hooked from the beginning. Just how important it is that these conversations are authentic, because those are going to make or break the show. Because if it feels heavy-handed, or if it feels forced, or if it feels too monolithic, you're going to lose people. And how important, one more thing, how important it is that Ali Shaheed Muhammad was in the music. How he was the musical director of this. And how important he is. Because
was it him or was it Adrian Young more so?
All of them, both of them.
Because Adrian Young, a lot of his stuff was the way, a lot of his Ghostface produced stuff was the stuff that was playing.
Well, that's not to say that it was only Ali, but I'm just saying to have these prolific people in hip hop, you know, that was important too, because it had to capture a certain tone, had to capture feeling. And I feel like they used music at the right moments too. I feel like the music was purposely used and purposefully used. So
yeah, more so than anything Marvel has done. This is where it sets it apart from the other shows and the movies. And it's one of my pet peeves when people talk about, when fans talk about comic properties and how they don't want to have any contemporary music in a certain movie, and they want to kind of get in their feelings of, and get on a high horse about, a comic book movie. Not to say that it can't be, seen as serious, but if they hear something that's playing on Top 40, they get offended and feel like, you know, it's cheapening the product. And I love that this is a show that just sort of does away with that, especially because it kind of needs to address music. Like, more so than, you know, even when you get to, like, doing scores for, like, you know, movies like Captain America: The First Avenger, where that was very much in the spirit of, you know, World War II, or, you know, the first Iron Man, which had, you know, it was orchestral, but there was still rock elements to it that fit the character. This is a situation where you need to have the music in there, and it was, you know, it was important to not only have the music, but, again, I say this again, as far as bridging the gap between young people and old, or, you know, people who were from that generation of, you know, 70s soul, and how it connects to hip-hop, and why is hip-hop what it is now. And I definitely appreciate the show for having that attention to detail, and having those two people, Adrian Young and Alicia E. Muhammad, who are very well known, especially Alicia E. Muhammad from Tribe Called Quest, who has
Lucy
a
Pearl.
you know, Lucy Pearl. So that, having that,
Shout out Kurt.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick and say this. One of that was probably one of the biggest conversations in a lot of our groups was the music. And let me just put it out there now. Actually, if you go to our website, popcultureuncovered.com, and look, we actually did run an article earlier this week letting people know that there are a couple of sites out there that actually has like a list of everything that you heard in each episode.
Yeah.
So that way, if you ran across something that you really could not remember or wanted the title to, it will tell you exactly what episode it's in, what the track name is, and whether or not it's available on Amazon or Apple, which was a good thing because there were so many tracks on there that I'm like, okay, let me go get the Shazam. And let me
Let me pause it.
Let me pause it and wind it back. And my wife looking at me like, well, you just let the daggone thing play. I'm like, okay, let's want to, you know, because, you know, apparently there will be a release later on of the entire soundtrack.
Yeah.
But,
of the entire score that actually comes out on Friday.
You know, let's be honest. Why buy stuff that you probably already have?
Because you want to support it.
Yeah, and you might not.
Yeah.
Actually, you might not have it too.
True.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I'm just being devil's advocate.
I'm just saying, like, that opening title sequence, like, the music for that was just ridiculous. They released it, like, a day early, like they do all the other shows, and I must have wasted maybe about 3 hours at work just listening to that over and over again. Because, like, my job requires me to, like, be able to, like, hear sound. So, I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to be like listening to this stuff for work, but that theme music though. So
last topic.
Wait, really? It's almost 9.
We're running out of time.
It's almost 9.
Well, time flies when you have a good time.
That's because 8:05. Yeah.
You're supposed to finish at 8 o'clock.
Boo boo.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What were you saying, Armand?
Go ahead.
All right, let's go.
So,
You know what? One of my favorite things about being a host is when you have shotgun hosts. As in, like, you talking and they're like, oh, this way.
I told you I was going to get hyped for this.
It's at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I thought we had 2 hours.
Okay. Now, well, I know y'all will go for 2 hours.
Yeah.
No question. But we'll see how.
That's how much there is to talk about.
Yeah,
in this show.
It is.
Exactly.
Well, fine. Instead of saying last topic, I'll just say next topic, and we'll see how long we go.
All right.
Thank you.
we open up to the audience.
Yes, radioactive Cheetos for everybody. Yes, there you go.
Yay! That was a great show.
So the hoodies and the reason
man.
the reason why I wanted to mention this because look,
Yes.
if black people embrace our heroes differently than other cultures, and what I mean by that is compliment. And the bit of foreshadowing that I thought was amazing was the fact that obviously when you're filming the show, you have no knowledge of what's going to happen in the future. But the fact that the hoodie with holes poked into it as being symbolic support of Luke Cage, and the way at that point that the police department is like the full court rushes on to get him, and the community has embraced him. I was like, in terms of things that were great moments, as like, oh yeah, this makes the show completely believable.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, wow, that was whoever the writer was for that episode. That was some of the best Magic 8 Ball I have ever seen before.
But I mean,
But actually, it's history too.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that would have been very easy for them to intuit that, okay, if we want to show support, if our characters wanted to show support for Luke Cage, and we see this guy in a hoodie with bullet holes in it, then I think it's pretty easy to make that leap. It's just coincidence that Colin Kaepernick has become a thing in recent months. So I don't know if it's necessarily...
I'm not alluding a direct...
okay.
What I'm saying is the way that black people are not... We're not part of the dominant culture. Right? We live in the larger society, but we have our own standalone culture as well.
Yeah.
And so what I mean is, specifically, the way that our community chooses to recognize and honor particular heroes. And what I mean by that is, like, look, iconography has always meant something different. Long before I ever heard the whole story of the 1968 Olympics, I knew that image. And I knew that image on T-shirts and on posters. Long before I knew the whole story of Malcolm X, the Malcolm X with the poster was something I was seeing on my older cousin's dorm rooms. And so what I mean is the importance of symbolism in terms of how we recognize and honor heroes.
Yeah.
That to me, the fact that they tapped upon that was big.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Look at that.
Right.
But that's been a part of black culture since we were snatched and brought here. Symbolism and music. Music is always going to permeate black culture because it's the way in which we communicate.
Yeah.
Without speaking. How important drum circles were, and still uniting and bringing villages together, even makeshift villages when you are from all different types of tribes from Africa, but you're all on the same plantation. How music is always going to be part of the black experience, no matter what it is. Whether it be ragtime, whether it be rock and roll, because yes, that is a black art form.
Even mumble rap? Mumble rap is pushing it.
Only thing. Okay, I'm not going to go.
I'm sorry.
No, that we all have our tenets with mumble rap, but however, it's just another expression of blackness.
That's true.
So you can't be, this is how the children, they're expressing themselves. Because guess what? Rap wasn't popular with our grandparents. They just wrote, it wasn't, because they wrote it off.
Well, my grandfather loved Tupac.
Yeah, your grandfather,
but
like, I'm saying, not saying that I'm going to go out here and listen to mumble rap and be bumping it, but I
need
can't
you to say words.
Right, I need to know what you're saying.
Words and hard.
But words and hard. But it's still a creative process.
No doubt.
So that's the only reason why I'm saying with that. But also something that in the show, the literature.
Yeah,
literature.
Goings.
And there's also, just as there's a list of all of the music that you hear, there are a couple sites out there that have a list of all the books and the references that they mention.
Can I share with you? I was surprised I didn't hear any female authors. But I heard Donald Goines.
Well,
I heard Walter Mosley. Now
right.
Somebody else, they may have said it and I didn't hear it, but I was like, Zora Neale Hurston?
No, Black Mariah actually did.
Did she?
Okay,
Yes,
she did.
I stand corrected. Okay.
And she actually mentioned Langston Hughes too. She had that was one of the things when she did her aggrandizing speeches to the press. She made a point to drop those names in reference to the history of Harlem.
Yeah, especially since some of those people spend a lot of their time.
Right, in Harlem.
Exactly.
Right. Whether they be born or,
Just passing through, they made their mark there.
Right, so I thought that was really important for the literature too.
But yeah, no, I did love those scenes where, Luke and Pop were talking about who was the better, black detective protagonist.
Kayode was the bomb, man. Kayode, yeah. You didn't read Donald Goines?
No.
I
tried.
I have read everything from Daddy Cool to Never Die Alone, which was so much better than the DMX movie. God, that movie was horrible.
I saw that movie.
DMX.
Hey, every DMX movie that came out wasn't bad. I just can't think of a good one.
But it was for the other people.
I mean, yeah, for
Belly, are y'all Belly fans?
I actually liked Belly.
Are you kidding me? Belly was a defining event.
I'm just saying. I see faces, and not everybody feels that way. That's all. That's all I'm just saying.
Well, if they don't feel that way, they're wrong.
Oh.
That's all it is.
Okay.
You have a right to your opinion,
but you're wrong.
But you're wrong.
Well, at this point, we want to open it up to the audience. If you guys got questions, comments, want to tell us, your thoughts on the show. This is the time to do it. Don't be shy. Also, for those of you out there that are watching, we want to invite some of you guys in the comments. Matter of fact, before we come right to those, let's start with Brooke, who he asked, how did they do on African American poets? All I heard was Langston Hughes, and what about Maya Angelou, Alice Walker, Rita Dove? Maybe I missed them. He's asking more about the poets.
Well, I don't think they're going to be brought up too much because they weren't a part of the Harlem Renaissance. So, I mean, not to say that they're not important, but they were really trying to focus on at least people who had
It's like when you try to
connection
cram that much into a show.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This show is black enough as it is.
Yeah, so we've been reminded this week.
And there was like a list of different things too that people wanted. Like, what would have been the 10 blackest things? One was like if Misty Knight was cornrolling Black Mariah's hair on the stoop. I was just like, oh.
No, that's a Sprite commercial for the 90s.
Oh my God,
That's what that
the
is.
Voltron campaign.
So let's.
No, that one with the actors. They were basketball players.
Anybody?
And they turned it up. Shakespeare.
No.
Any questions y'all want to talk about?
Yeah.
Any points on Luke Cage you want to bring up?
As the best soundtrack so far.
That music though.
What you don't see is my boy Artemis here in the back. Shout out to him. Great, amazing local talent here, rapper. He does it all. Check him out. You got a site you want to drop?
Stardoms.bandcamp.com. You can Google it, ARDMUS, comes up.
So that was the first thing he was going to say. Definitely, we definitely talked about how the soundtrack definitely permeated the story and drove the story. How it kept it on pace, on point, and it was really touching to each one of the different touch points and emotions felt.
See, actually, I'll push it further than that. What I'll say is, if you know the albums that those songs come from, they line up with what's going on at that particular time.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff they were playing was the stuff that Adrian Young has done with Ghostface, whereas Ghostface he is taking on, it is a very cinematic album to avoid a long story. So I'll just say, the stuff that you hear where Lester King is being referenced and whatnot, it is a very nice use of material where they're already talking about a topic and it's playing out in front of you.
It
So,
just adds a lot more.
I just thought of something.
And the episodes are named after gangsters.
That too. Coming back to imagery, what really stood out for me, because that's actually going to be my question to you all, is what moment stood out to you in the show? My answer would be very early on, the use of Biggie Smalls' picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Early on.
With the crown.
With the crown, and then how, again,
The
very
shots,
early
of course,
on,
yeah.
when Cottonmouth is making his speech before he's about to kill the kid, and he, just so happens he's walking on. If you're really not paying attention, you miss it because it's that obvious that as he's talking,
he gets closer to the
picture, and then the crown just sets upon his head. Because it's like, even when you saw the show early on, and you kept seeing that Biggie picture pop up, I kept saying, this is there for a reason. That picture just doesn't pop up just because it's going to be used. So I was, that was the one thing that stood out to me. Is like, yes, he's trying to be king, but he's trying to go at it in a different fashion. Then, of course, the irony of it all is, Biggie was cut down young, so that's foreshadowing as well.
Right, and heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely
Esther.
So actually, directly after that, quick question: you see at the end that they replaced that Biggie portrait once Mariah takes over with a painting of two people wearing crowns. Is that indicative of her and Shades, or what exactly is going on there? Like, what?
Well, I'll say this. I think you're absolutely right. I thought the interesting thing was the dividing line in between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In other words, they're two regions for now, but they can't really be two rulers. Somebody's not going to make it.
Which I think is a direct parallel to the two of them. A direct parallel.
So back to your question in terms of moments that were really telling.
Mm-hmm.
Cottonmouth playing the keyboard.
Yes.
Because it's he's an actor throughout almost the entire show. What I mean is he is the callus behind which all the events are moving. What was amazing was to see how much emotion and energy Ali was able to invest into the character when he's sitting and he's just playing. And I actually felt like it made that character, again, like Vincent D'Onofrio playing Wilson Fisk.
Where he's looking at that,
looking
at that painting at the art gallery.
Giving a villain depth is always a good idea.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean, look, the moments that are going to stand out the most is like, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Benign neglect.
Benign neglect, yes. And also don't go on ruse and tell your boss you made an executive decision.
Right.
Please don't do that either.
So those were the moments that were going to stand out for that character,
Yeah,
obviously. But him playing the piano, that made it something special.
Okay, wait.
Wait, let's go ahead.
We got him, but before we come to him, we do have one other comment. And my apologies if I'm butchering this, especially since Kayode's here. Kike says, well, the gross kiss between Shades and Mariah.
Did you see how his lipstick moved? Alfred was his didn't. I was just like...
I didn't like that.
I'll admit.
No, I didn't like it. It felt forced. It felt forced.
Yeah, it was unnecessary. You could have sold that with a look. You really could have.
Well, that's what they were doing off show.
But it wasn't.
But
But
sexy bitch.
right,
because you do get because you do get
Bring
the
it down.
impression that like early on that Shades definitely likes him some older.
I never got that impression.
I
That was such a
I
left
didn't
up.
get
Even
that.
for the little bit I watched, I didn't get that either.
Oh, but have you seen Cocaine Cowboys? I was like, she's Griselda Blanco, and it just came out like the blue.
Yeah, I understand that.
Going back to the scene where Captain made his first killing, I felt like the way the camera shot the red in the room, like how the red captured most of the blood, and the blood looked like it was black, and it sucked up most of the red in the room. So when he made his first killing and how he was on top of the guy, giving him the business, and it captured the feeling of villainy. Like red is usually associated with villainy.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say. But
right.
The part where he gets out of jail when
Who's he?
when Luke Cage gets out of Luke Cage gets out of jail, whatever, and he's trying to look for new gear. Original stuff. That was funny.
That was great.
I mean, it was great.
They had to find a way to get that in.
It was true though, because they're trying to update his character anyway. Because the majority of people don't know his origins like that. And I remember seeing Luke Cage dressed like that. I was like, is he going to a disco? I don't know.
I mean, it was the 70s, so it made sense.
So I thought that was funny.
There was a nice Stan Lee cameo in there. That was nice.
I thought that was nice because they talked about Stan getting older.
Yeah.
He's pre-shot his cameos for the next 4 Marvel movies.
Right.
I thought that was nice that they worked him in.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a question about the future, and it kind of ties into a character. Okay. So we all knew that Jessica Jones, that Reva died in Jessica Jones.
Yes.
Now we've kind of gotten the explanation of why maybe it wasn't so tragic that Reva died.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think that does for the likelihood we're going to see Cage and Jessica Jones as a couple sometime in the future? Because that seemed to have been the barrier from them getting back together.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, their relationship developed in Jessica Jones, and we know they're all going to be together in the Defenders. So I'm sure that's going to be touched upon. I don't know how much I want to see that develop full-fledged, just because there's a lot going on, and obviously this is, we're working in a limited time frame as opposed to the comics where they went through maybe 2 or 3 different comic book titles developing their relationship over maybe 5 or 6 years after Alias before they finally got together. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that's going to be a sticking point for them, but I'm not sure if it's absolutely necessary for the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I think the only thing I look at it as, at some point, it almost has to happen, because you got to look at it. Even from early on in Jessica Jones, you could tell that they're 2 broken people, but somehow they were good for each other. They kind of held each other up. So with this show actually fleshing out who Luke Cage is, whether or not that plays out further on down the road, and kind of brings them back together, that might be a thing. I mean, even one other thing we got Rossi Brown, who is saying they're married with a kid. Will we get that side of it? I don't know. You know, Ronald is also asking if Danny will date Misty. We still don't know.
Yeah,
There's still like a lot wide open, but you know, as you guys have said, everything is wide open, especially when it all comes together under the Defenders banner. So at that point, let's take any more questions. One more question or comment from the audience, so we can wrap up. Everybody. Yes, ma'am.
There's one scene, I mean, this wasn't a pivotal scene at all, but I just thought it was so cool. This was in one of the last 2 or 3 episodes, where you had 4 black women at the station talking, like, getting shit. Sorry, swear jar. Getting stuff done, and I don't think I've seen that in a television show. And there were no men in the room either. It was just the 4 of them talking about things and getting things done, which was really cool.
Right.
That's really it's really important to see that.
Unless it was on home. That would have been it.
Probably,
possibly. If they would have been a police station, it would have been like a hair salon.
Yeah.
Yes, and exactly. We need to be seen in other places because we exist.
Y'all exist in other places?
I mean,
like for real, for real?
No.
Don't get cut, man.
No, I know we're trying to wrap up, but that was another thing. The character Aisha, like, I actually liked her being a business owner who was also still, you know, she kind of fit that mold of being, you know, the street girl. But at the same time, she was taking care of her father. She was trying to run a business, and she had reason to be angry because these guys are coming in, messing with her shops, taking her, something that means a lot to her and her relationship with her father, even if her father doesn't care about it as much as she does. And I thought that was nice to see that character in the show as well.
So on that note,
no, because it's not on that note. Because there's one thing I have to say.
What?
I thought they thought of the smartest way to give Pop his nickname.
Yes!
Oh,
yeah!
Yes!
I didn't want to end the show without, every time you've heard somebody called Pop, it's
because they're old.
No. When they were like, Scrap, Crackle, Pop, I was like, that is the greatest thing of all time. Because there's nothing else the show accomplishes. Every person will claim, they call me Pop, and now they know, son. So they made Pop cool, which is an accomplishment. So they got rid of Netflix and chill. and they made Pop cool, which you can pull that off in the 13th episode of the show. That's magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note,
before we
What?
Can we all go and just give a final note? I think that's a good idea. No, I go down the line.
Okay, for me, and this is again one of those things where, just to give you some context, I was born in Montreal, Canada. I've grown up in Oxon Hill, Maryland most of my life. So for me to be as hype about this show and what it does for the African American community as it relates to, an inner city or urban setting, it was amazing to watch this show and realize all of those things that I was kind of on the periphery of get some validation. Like, I've used to walk to my local barber shop and just kick it with dudes while I'm getting my hair cut, while I'm waiting to get my hair cut, going down to, local, all these local businesses going, in the it's tough for me to talk about just because one of the things about me that always kind of annoys me is when people say, "Oh, you're not black, you're Canadian." And
wow,
I
can't believe that.
Yeah, it's something that was really personal to me. And one of my other favorite movies is Blade, and that was probably one of the last times when a comic book film really spoke to me as far as a black hero character. And the soundtrack, again, for that was very much connected to what I was listening to as a teenager. And again, that was another like film or property where they put a lot of effort into fleshing out the female character. When you think about that whole film, you realize that N'Bushe Wright's character is actually the real hero of the film. So to come back like 18 years later with Luke Cage, that was just immensely powerful to watch that show and see it kind of hit those same chords with me. And I usually don't wear, like, you know, my anger about injustices against black people on my sleeve. I don't talk a lot on social media about things going on in the black community or how black people are affected by things going on in society. But watching this show, I can't help but just be vocal about it and talk about how much right they did with it by black people.
My takeaway from the show is that we've all been touching on all day today in the panel here, how important black women are to society, to black men as a whole. Oftentimes we are usually crutches, and we're not always seen as our own dynamic characters that have thoughts, that have feelings, that have emotions. And to see so many black women, so many different black women, not just, you know, ones that are darker, there are ones that were lighter, some had curly hair, some had straight hair, some had weave, some were natural. To be able to see that represented and done in such a tasteful way, and have so many different ranges of personalities, that's probably one of the biggest things that resonated for me. Later on in the year, actually next month, me and a couple of friends here at Fantom, we're going to be running the book club or World of Wakanda. Another Marvel property coming out, solely focused on mostly on the women of Wakanda, coming off the tails of the immensely popular Black Panther comic that's running right now, written by Coates. Just to see this in society too, just to see this embracing of black femininity, of otherness, embracing our awkwardness and our fully dynamic selves. Growing up, I've always been a tomboy, I've been a nerd, and I've always spoke very proper, so kind of what you went through, I went through. You don't talk black, you talk like a white girl, things like that. I've had to deal with that a whole entire life. And just to see so many different characters, like I really resonate with Storm, of course, but she's not the only black character there is. So now we're getting to see Misty Knight. And there are a lot of ways I see more of myself in Misty Knight, like on the court, I got you. Being really super tough, being super brave at times when I need to be brave, but sometimes feeling vulnerable too. So, you know, it wasn't just that she was a black woman, which was an important part of it, but that she was a fully fleshed out woman. And we need to see more of that. I'm glad that we're getting to see it in popular culture, in comics, because people love to think that we're not here. No, sorry. Black people are here. Black women are here. And we will be heard, and we will be seen, we will be felt. And if we want to be angry, we will be angry, because that is a human emotion, and we're allowed to feel it. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But I'm ready to see more of this from Marvel, but I'm also ready to see this more from DC. I'm ready to see it from DC. I'm not saying it's going to happen. There's so many reasons. I'm glad that they, have Vixen. That's a step in the right direction. For its faults, for its many faults, there are many good things there too. But I'm ready to see it more from
Kid Flash.
Right. I'm ready for. I'm just saying specifically black women, but I'm ready for Image to come out with some titles.
Oh, yeah. Well, that would be like an atom bomb of
oh my god, that would
dopeness.
I need you, Netflix, to team up with Image if you can. Some Dark Horse, anything. I'm ready to see us fully realize, and not just us, but my Latino and Latinas, my Asian folks, my indigenous tribes. We need to see everybody. So I'm really ready to see more representation, and
that was great to see in Luke Cage as well.
Right. I don't care what you saying, Tim Burton. I don't care what Tim Hasselbeck has to say, and Coulter. I love being black. I'm always gonna love being black, and ain't a daggone thing you can say that'll make me change my mind.
I don't know if there's anything left to say. This is my 6 seconds. What I will say is Luke Cage was a reimagined character that wasn't created inside the community, right? It would be interesting to see what the community comes up with. Maybe not now, but 5 or 6 years from now, if this is what somebody else made that we rehashed and remade, it would be fascinating to see what the community itself would actually produce. Because I think in terms of seeing more women, more dynamic women of color that are reflective of actual reality, stuff like Concrete Park that Eric Alexander did.
Yeah.
I think or like Black, which some people love and some people revile, but I happen to think it's cool. I think it would be interesting. It's always what a community produces itself in terms of how what its own narrative is. The things that flow out of that are naturally more interesting, which is the reason why Bee Planet for me is a book that works for. I want to read a woman write a woman. Greg Wicker does a good job, but I also want.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
You want there's always someone.
So
go ahead here.
For me, watching Luke Cage, especially when you guys talk about the conversations that I had and the things that are done, in so many ways it reminds me of The Wire because of its realness. But a lot of people have to understand. I have a very, very difficult relationship and a lot of difficult issues watching The Wire because I'm from Baltimore. I've seen those things. For me, watching The Wire is like watching what goes on at home. I mean, as much as people like to come and say how it's critically acclaimed, it's being taught in colleges, it's a hard show to break down and dissect. Spend a day with me in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was for me watching that show. That was actually the last real show about Black people I saw on television. I made it through 2 seasons, and I couldn't do it anymore because I saw so much of my neighborhood, so much of people that I knew, things that I remembered. And I got some of that from Luke Cage as well, and maybe probably the reason why I'm having a bit of an easier time watching it is because it's not my home. But I still feel a lot of it there because these are some of the same things that are going on. And that's the realness of it all. But it's a very effective show. It's doing for me what shows like Empire is not doing. And I honestly, I would say I think that's what it is for a lot of people. And Armand will tell you, we did a piece last year when Empire premiered. It was just my opinion and my opinion only as to why I think it failed as a show. Because it took so many stereotypes and just twisted it and just made it not a thing to be. Whereas when you look at a show like Luke Cage, you will see some of the stereotypes come out. But if you've lived like most of us have lived, a lot of those things are actual. A lot of those things are real. A lot of those characters we could relate with. And to me, that is why when I look at Luke Cage, I can relate to it on so many levels. But it kind of gets to me in a certain place as well. So, on that note, I want to thank everybody here. I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause. And before we cut, I want to let you all know that we're going to be back here next month after Doctor Strange releases, and we're going to dissect that movie, good or bad.
Get your popcorn ready, because there's a ton of issues.
Lots of issues, and I will tell you like this: we will spoil it. So if you've not seen it, don't come in, don't watch.
No. Come anyway and enjoy it being spoiled. Come anyway.
Yeah, you might actually save some money. Who knows?
Right, exactly.
All right. Again, for those of you out there listening, watching, wherever, and for those of you here, this is again popcultureuncovered.com. That's our website. You can follow us on Twitter at PC Uncovered. Same with Instagram. We also have a Tumblr page. If you look up Pop Culture Uncovered on Tumblr, we're there as well. We put out lots of content. We're also looking for volunteers that want to come out. This is a volunteer effort that we enjoy, and I have to give a shout out not only to my crew here, but the rest of my crew that helps us with getting content up, such as Doug and Adam, Bell, Paul, Allie, everybody, all you guys out there that should be thanked. You are thanked. You heard it here first. Thank you for supporting us in all this time. And on that note, catch us again next month. Thank you all again. We're out.
Hey, no super
Sweet Christmas!
No super villain would wear lime green. Given an option, if somebody's making you a suit, nobody picks lime green as a preferred option.
The Joker.
Bye.
No. He wears mint green or money green.